Gun Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Shrimati Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Chinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Pacharani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Pasyacha Deja Tarani Prabhupada ki jai. So I think you can take this and put it like that. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to read a translation. Oh, okay, thank you. I'm going to read the translation of this poem written by Narottam Das Thakur. And Prabhupada instructed that we should read or chant this song every time we are commemorating a disappearance day of a great personality. This is a standard, ISKCON standard. He who brought the treasure of divine love and was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatana? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatt and Gopal Bhatt? Where is Krishnadas Kavi Raj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. So now we will go and talk about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Om Gana Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual masters, divine grace, A.C. Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So we're going to give a brief history of his life, maybe a chronological history. What does chronological mean?
In the order of time that it happened.
Intelligent. Okay, so before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared, there were many, as there are now, many Apa Sampradayas. What's an Apa Sampradaya? Apa Sampradaya means Sampradayas that deviate from the actual pure Sampradaya of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like I'm not going to describe them all, Saki Bekis, and anyway, there's so many that are being described. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw this and he didn't know what he should do about it because it required. Is it?
Outside.
Okay, that's all right. As long as it's not one of you. So he didn't know what to do about it because, he had all the responsibilities and he needed someone to preach, someone to dynamically preach and travel all over to take care of this. So just like Advaita Charya didn't know what to do about all the people of Navadvip area who were just engaged in fruitive activities and ritualistic Brahmanism. And so he prayed to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, offering water and tulsi leaves to Krishna for Krishna's advent. In the same way, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayed, and he had other sons before this too, but he prayed. He had 3 other sons before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he prayed, "Dear Lord Chaitanya, send your right-hand man." Wow. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is known as a ray of Vishnu. That's really important. So, therefore, he appeared as the fourth son of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And his name was given in the beginning, was not Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. He was given that name later on. His name was Bimal Prasad. And that means he's the mercy of Mother Parvati. And the story goes that when Jagannath is offered Bhoga, Jagannath is never offered prasadam. Prasadam is given to us, not to Lord Jagannath. So when Jagannath is offered Bhoga, and that Bhoga is given to Mother Parvati, who gives it to Lord Shiva. I'm sorry, that prasadam later on is given to Mother Parvati, gives it to Lord Shiva. So he's actually, so in other words, Jagannath Prasad, for all of us, not only for what is given to Lord Shiva, comes through Parvati. And that's a story from the Chaitanya Mangal, where Parvati was so upset that her husband, Lord Shiva, would not give her Jagannath Prasad. He said to her, "You are not qualified." Don't show a mystic there. So you are not qualified because you're the material energy. You're Maya, which is true. She's Maya. But Maya also means energy, it means mercy and other things too. So she became so upset that she performed austerities in order to distribute prasadam not only to herself, but to all of her children, which includes us. Parvati is our mother in one sense, the mother of our bodies, not actually the mother of the soul. Actually, Krishna is the father of the soul. We are his parts and parcels. So, upon birth, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, Bimal Prasad, showed all the signs of a Mahapurusha. Mahapurush means a great person. What are those signs? Anyone know? Long arms go down to the knees, not when you're sitting. When you're standing, see, my arms don't go down to my knees. Unless, if I sit, obviously. And eyes like lotus petals, perfect proportions to one's body. And I'm looking around here, nobody here has perfect proportions. Just like I was at the doctor once, and the doctor said, "Did you know that one eye is a little higher than the other one?" I said, "Oh no, I'm not a Mahapurush." So he had all the signs of Mahapurush, and he was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck, just like a Brahmin's thread. Very unusual. So he was born February 6th, 1874. And so it came, these are different stories of his youth. When he was very, very young, it was time for the grain ceremony. And as in the case of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refused to take any grains unless it was offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur refused to take any grains until it was time for the Rath Yatra. And the cart, the Rath Yatra cart, Lord Jagannath, stopped in front of his house for 3 days. They couldn't get it to move. That was like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. They couldn't move the cart with the horses and the elephants and everything like that. Finally, pushed the cart with his head. So they couldn't get the cart to move for 3 days. So Bhagavati, who was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mother, took advantage of this and brought her with the son up to the cart, and a garland fell on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur from Lord Jagannath. It was a great sign. Sometimes we see that if someone goes before the deities and they're praying for something, and then a garland from the deities falls, it's considered a very auspicious sign. That happened with Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami when he was taking permission, Madan Mohan, to write the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was actually given a blessing from the deities like that. So Then he showed many signs of great devotion as he was growing up. One story that's famous is that he was only 2 to 3 years of age. Means a lot younger than this guy over here. And he didn't have any mobile phones. So what happened is, 2 or 3 years old, what can a kid do? So at that time, it happened to be mango season. And he grabbed one mango and was eating it. 2 or 3 years old. Remember that. I mean, they could hardly figure anything out at 2 or 3 years of age. And his father mildly said, don't you know? He didn't chastise him. Because, you don't chastise a 2 or 3-year-old boy, I mean, if he steps on you, you don't chastise him. You just, of course, when they're 15 or 16, it's a little different. So, anyway, so his father said, something like in the future, you don't want to eat this. He didn't say, you rascal. He said, in the future, we offer Krishna before we. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur took that very seriously at 2 or 3. In a vow like that? You want to make a promise? No. He's not capable of keeping a promise at that age, as most of us were not capable of keeping a promise. So, I mean, we find people join the movement later on in life, and they made promises to Prabhupada, and they didn't keep those promises. And Prabhupada was shocked because Prabhupada had not had the experience of adults not keeping promises. He was from a very high-class culture. So Prabhupada was shocked. How could they do this? And the first disciples who fell down or left or broke their promises, Prabhupada was actually crying because it was just like losing someone. And when someone would come back, Prabhupada would actually embrace the person and say, please stay. Prabhupada was so lenient. Even there's stories that Prabhupada had temple presidents sometimes who were breaking the principles and everyone wanted to throw them out or they weren't chanting their rounds. And Prabhupada said, reform, don't kick them out. So anyways, he took a vow for the rest of his life, he never ate a mango. And when he was offered a mango by his disciples, he said, no, I'm too sinful. And in India, that's very serious, to not eat a mango. I mean, for those of us in the Western world, who cares? Mango, whatever. The Western world is like ice cream or something like that. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was excavating this place called the Bhakti Bhavan, in other words, excavating land to construct something. And he discovered when he was excavating this in Srinath Mayapur, a Kurma deity. He gave the Kurma deity to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as well as initiated him. Yeah, so the Kurma deity, and it initiated him in the Sringan mantra at that young age. So it's interesting that initiations sometimes are different mantras at different ages. It's really interesting. It's not that you just get all the mantras at once. So just like normally in India, people get the Brahma Gayatri, children, the boys get a Brahma Gayatri at a certain age. And so he started to worship this deity. But also at 7 years of age, he had already memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita. How old was he?
I'm 11.
You memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita?
Nope.
No. Okay.
Believe it or not.
Neither have I. So, I mean, I know the Bhagavad Gita, but I haven't memorized the Bhagavad Gita. So he had a photographic memory. Photographic memory means you just hear something once, you see something once, or you taste something, anything. You remember it for the rest of your life. In fact, the way he learned English was by reading the dictionary and memorizing every word in the dictionary. So therefore, when he spoke in such in an elevated fashion, using words that, if you go through the dictionary, Oxford, you got the Oxford Dictionary, or the Merriam-Webster's. Anyway, you have all these different dictionaries, Cambridge Dictionary. Imagine reading this. There's words there that I've never heard. And there's some of you obviously have not heard these words. Oops. And so he basically memorized it, and he never studied at all. He just heard things once, and he did well in school. In fact, his teachers would say, "Why don't you study?" And he said, "I've learned everything. Why should I study?" And then the teacher said, "Well, we're going to test you." So they tested him, and he did 100% on his exams. Pretty good. Pretty good. He also became very expert in astrology at an early age. Expert astrologer, which he later renounced, and I'll mention that when we get to that particular point. And so at 11 years of age, he went touring with his father, Srila Thakur, and preaching. He would give lectures. He developed his own shorthand. Shorthand means a way to take notes, which was called bkgoswami. And he became so expert in astrology that even at 11, 12, he had a debate with an expert astrologer, a very famous astrologer. And the astrologer got so disturbed by being defeated that in the middle of the debate, he had a call of nature. Nature said, "Come." It means the word call of nature. It means he had to go to the toilet.
Oh.
So that's what it means. And someone gets so disturbed, they get defeated, and they have to run to the toilet. So then when he was 13, he took Harinam initiation from his father. As I mentioned before, he had the well, actually, I should mention why he had the Nrsimha mantra and the Kurma mantra, or worshiping Kurma. Because the Nrsimha is there not just to destroy your enemies, but to destroy your internal anger, greed, envy, kama, krodha, mada, matsarya, varya, fear. So all these are your real enemies. So, and the reason he was worshiping Kurmadev is that Kurmadev is the presiding deity for the nectarian ocean of Bhakti Ras. So those are the reasons he was given those two deities to worship. And when he was 16, he established what's something called the August, not August. August is pronounced a little the same spelling, but it's pronounced differently. August means very elevated. August assembly, where of his friends, and they all promised to be brahmacharis for the rest of their lives. And the only one who kept the vow was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. So then later on, he went to the uni, and he didn't stay in the uni the whole time to graduate. He was in the uni from 1892 to 95, but he left because he did not want to get entangled. Because he thought, if I graduate, people are going to want to marry me. My parents are going to want to make an arrangement. And so let me get at it. Oops. That's right. I can see this as his own life. Let me get out of here. I have my own life. Oh, you want to see me? Okay. So, in the same way, we find that Lord Chaitanya's brother also, when he heard about his parents planning his marriage, this Ruth, he just ran away from home. Wow. And anyway, so many great souls did that. So he decided not to do that, but he had to get a job. His parents said, you got to do something with your life. And so he worked from 1895 to 1905 as an advisor, astrologer, and Brahmin for the king of Tripura. That was his job. But it's a brahminical position. And he also composed a treatise on astrology. And he also composed something called the Navadvip Panchika, which is our calendar, Vaishnava calendar at that particular point. Then in 1897, he started observing what's called Chaturmasha. In 1899, for the first time, he met Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Remember, at this point, he had not taken initiation. Initiation generally refers to the Gayatri Mantra, or the not just the Brahma Gayatri, but the other Gayatris that we get as Vaishnavas, different Vaishnava Gayatri mantras, such as the Guru Gayatri, the Gaura Gayatri, and other Gayatris, Gopal Mantra, Kama Gayatri, and these are given to those who are qualified. So that's really what's considered, in a traditional sense, what's considered initiation. Harinam, in a traditional sense, was not really considered initiation, but we do in ISKCON, and it firms up one's commitment. So he met Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who was a disciple of Bhagavad Das Babaji, who was a disciple of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. So he was connected with. And Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj was living very simply. He had a tiger hat, and as described, his beads were just ropes, knots in a rope. And so he was told by his father, "Here is your guru." And so he approached Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj in 1900. And Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj said, "I don't have permission to do that. I have to ask Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for permission." So later on, Srila Sarasvati Thakur went back to Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj and said, "Have you asked Lord Chaitanya?" And Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj said, "I forgot." And then he went back a third time and he said, "I didn't get permission." And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur threatened to give up his life. "If I cannot get initiated by you, I'm just going to give up my life." And so finally, Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj relented, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was the only disciple of Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. And that's why he actually got the samadhi of Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and there's a whole story about that. So he was initiated with the name Avarsha Vanavi Devi Doyi Kaya Das, which means the mercy of Srimati Radharani. Wow, man. So then in 1898, he went to Puri, Jagannath Puri with his father, giving classes on the Chaitanya Charitamrita to many people, but he was so strong in his philosophy that anytime a Vaishnava was doing something that was improper or chanting an improper mantra, he would actually just go after the person and criticize them. He was known for his chopping technique. He was sometimes called the Shringa Guru. And he would approach people, even Mayavadis, especially Mayavadis, he would approach them and just like, because he was very tall, very tall, like 6 foot, well, because you don't know feet here. I just don't know meters. Anyway, like 6'5" or something like that. And he would pull them by the, by this portion of the shirt. "What are you doing?" They were scared of him. Anyway, so there was this one personality in Jagannath Puri called Radharaman Charna Das Babaji, and he had concocted this new mantra. And the new mantra was not only concocted, but it also was portraying an improper understanding of our sadhana process. It was Bhaja Nitai Gaur Radhesham Lapa Hari Krishna Hari Ram. So what that mantra means is that you can chant Nitai Gaur Radhesham But Hare Krishna mantra should only be chanted in japa, not in kirtan. So he was actually preaching against kirtan, which is actually our Yuga Dharma, right? And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he's also like doing something called saki baking. Saki baking means dressing in drag. So you don't know what drag is. It means a man dressing as a woman. Like those in the West, then we know. Because there's shows where people pay money to see men dress as women. Prophet actually said, oh, this is interesting in that regard. Not, when something is portrayed unusually, people will pay money to see it. Prophet said, no one will go to see a dog barking. But when a man barks like a dog, everyone will pay. It's like when I was young, my mother would generally take us to the circus, and you have dogs acting like human beings there, riding bicycles. You seen that? You have three-ring circus, women hanging from a rope with their teeth. So if there's something unusual, people. So anyway, so he was dressed in drag. And because he was so popular, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was preaching against him, there was a riot in Jagannath Puri, and there was an attempt on his life. And so Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to spirit him out of Jagannath Puri to save his life. So he left Jagannath Puri at this particular point. And during that particular time, after he left Jagannath Puri, he composed this Vaishnava encyclopedia about our philosophy and all the people who preached before, all the great acharyas. So then in 1904 and 1905, he went to South India. Why did he go to South India? To study the Ramanujacharya methodology of sannyas. Because the Vaishnava Gaudiya Vaishnava sannyas was simply to put on a white dhoti, not even a dhoti, a lungi, and it's called the Babaji order of sannyas. But the Ramanujacharyas had these saffron dhotis like that. And so he wanted to establish in the Gaudiya Sampradaya a type of sannyas that would enable us to be recognized and preach Krishna consciousness. Because generally in Kali Yuga, according to the Puranas, sannyas is forbidden. But he understood that if one could preach more, they could change their dress, and there could be a special type of Vaishnava sannyas that was not present before to facilitate Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. So we wanted to study them. And incidentally, he also studied another group, I hate to mention their name, the Ramakrishna mission, which Prabhupada really criticized. But he studied them, their external manifestation, how they became popular, what their dress was. So he actually copied success. It's a really important principle. We often say, I often explain this to my GBC colleagues, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So many times in the GBC, the devotees try to reinvent things that have already been done. If you're worried about structure, why don't you just examine different organizations? Like Prabhupada said, look at the Catholic Church, see how they're organized, and take the best aspects of their organization. Hare Krishna devotee. I can do anything and know anything. I can be an expert mathematician, business. They think, oh, I know how to invest money, they lose their shirts. Anyway, that's another thing. So he wanted to take the best practices that would enable him to present Lord Chaitanya's mission in widespread fashion. So he studied the Ramakrishna mission, and probably really did not like the Ramakrishna mission, and the Ramanujacharya Sampradaya. So because he wanted to establish that sannyas. But in order to get the potency to preach, he actually took a vow in 1905 to chant 1 billion rounds. And he was chanting 192 rounds a day in order to achieve that. It took a long time. And so, and he did this in Radhakund. And in 1906, he initiated his first disciple. And then in 1911, he was so expert in philosophy that his father employed him in preaching against his father's guru. His father's Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur's father's guru, his guru was named Bhaktisivihari Goswami. That was his ritualistic guru. His actual, substantial guru, Siksha guru, was Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. So that's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur established something called the Siksha Sampradaya as most important. Just like we talk about in ISKCON, our most important connection for all of us is through his divine grace of the Prabhupada, regardless of who we're initiated by. And Prabhupada is our Siksha connection. And of course, our guru should also present our prerogative to adjust the philosophy or practices. We can, let's say, package things in a little bit different way. I can play the guitar, Prabhupada can play the guitar. But if Prabhupada said something like where the soul came from, we should not go shopping to other organizations and think, oh, they have a different opinion about that. We stick with Prabhupada's opinion. And Prabhupada's opinion is backed up by Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Yet we have sometimes people who attack ISKCON and with different opinions, with the whole idea of dissuading the devotees from remaining in ISKCON, with the whole idea of winning their own followers amongst or from those devotees who are in ISKCON, faithful with ISKCON now. You see this happens up quite often. Like especially you go to Radhakund, people, the Babajis will tell you your guru is only on a certain level of devotional service. And the reason you haven't realized your eternal spiritual nature is you don't have the right guru. But here I am. I am the right guru. I will tell you who you are. You'll go, oh, thank God. I've been chanting for 20 years and I haven't realized anything yet. And now, shoot, this brought me to this nice Babaji who told me that I'm a yogi. Nice, quick and easy. Krishna conscious. So anyway, he was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was sent by his father for anyway, it's important to this place called Nipur to debate with Bkgoswami Goswami. He was very much into ritualistic Brahmanism and basically caste Brahmanism. And so there was this discussion, argument, debate as to who was superior, Vaishnavas or Brahmins. And so we know a Vaishnava is automatically a Brahmin. The word Brahmin means one who knows Brahman. So Vaishnava knows Brahman the best, more than the Mayavadi or anyone else. So he went to this debate, and Bhaktisivihari Goswami, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur's guru, was there. And he was very expert in his defeating the ritualistic Brahmins. The first things he said was he started to praise the Brahmins. Oh, the Brahmins are the greatest in society. They're wonderful. They're high. The Brahmins let their guard down. And then, wham, he established that Vaishnavas are automatically Brahmins and Vaishnavas superior to Brahmins who are not Vaishnavas. And the crowds went wild. And as you know, in India, when the crowds go wild and they really see a great personality, what do they want to touch someone's feet? They rush up. Oh, the feet. So that can get quite dangerous if you have like 1,000 people trying to touch your feet simultaneously. And so the guards thought, we got to protect him. And so they held the crowd back and they picked up Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, dunked his feet in a vat of water and sprinkled that water. Yeah. They actually dunked his feet in water. So in 1911, he established the Vedic basis for accepting Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the incarnation of Krishna. So actually, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also came up with a lot of different quotes, and in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's also a lot of quotes establishing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an incarnation of Krishna. So because he was giving many of his disciples sannyas, and many of the disciples were coming from lower castes. There was a whole conspiracy. This is India. Pay to have someone killed or so don't aggravate anybody, because that'll be the end of you. So police officer told him that actually generally it's no problem, we just look the other way because I've been bribed. But in your case, I'm not going to take the chance. Then in 1913, he using the deity to make money for you instead of going on CD is actually doing the collecting. So basically what he said to all these Babajis who wanted the samadhi, he said, okay, you can have the samadhi if this year, and if you have, and you said that you haven't, you'll go to hell. And so nobody came. He said, okay, I'll be a little more lenient, 6 months. 3 months? 1 month? No one came forward. He said 3 days. No one came forward. So this is the state, in many cases, of the Babajis. Just like, you'll have someone who does puja for you at Radhakund, and then if you come at a different time or so the other day, they may be completely intoxicated. So don't take these things so seriously. Of course, pay respect to everybody in the holy dam. Don't be disrespectful, but at the same time, don't think that this person is following strictly. So anyway, so we got the samadhi, and he had a wonderful dream at that time. The Panchatattva appeared to him, assuring him success. And this is very similar to the rowing dream that Srila Prabhupada had, where all the incarnations of Krishna were rowing the boat across the ocean. In 1918, he gave sannyas to himself, following the Ramanujacharya rituals and rites. And he had a picture of his spiritual master. And this is not generally the process. Actually, taking sannyas is a social order. It's not like a spiritual initiation. So if someone has a sannyas guru, that's not their actual guru. The guru is just functioning as a functionary at that point. So, and then the preaching really took off at that particular time. In 1918, he also established the first math in Calcutta, which is Danga. And that's where a few years later, 4 years later, in 1922, Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada met him on the rooftop. And that's where Prabhupada was defeated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati. Thakur. Prabhupada was sort of a member of Gandhi's nonviolent cooperation movement. And Prabhupada was wearing khadi, this very rough cloth. And so after that, Prabhupada accepted him as the spiritual master. Didn't get initiated for another 11 years after that point. And okay, back a little bit. 1919, he actually gave that lecture. Well, established a deity of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Govardhan, Dwipa. And that's across the Jalangi River, if anyone's been there, Mayapur. And the Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house, there's a deity there. And there he gave the heavy lecture about doing business with the deity is like using Shalagram Shila to crack nets with. Then he established the Chaitanya Math in 1923. And Chaitanya Math, he showed the 4 sampradayas. If you go there, you see the deities of the 4 sampradayas. 1924, it was the first Vyas Puja. So in other words, he didn't start Vyas Pujas immediately when he was initiating the disciples. He waited many years. And during that Vyas Puja, he gave a famous lecture called Humbler Than a Blade of Grass. And he actually said, why is this? And I forget the exact words, it's like proud animals sitting on a throne like this. And he said, why? Because it's the order of the Guru. It's the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in other words, when one takes a position like that, they don't think of themselves as qualified or as a guru, but they think I'm simply following my spiritual master's order, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order to carry out the mission. And I'm simply a servant like everybody else. And in 1925, he established the circumambulation of Navadvip. And people were so upset that he was taking all these people out who had been initiated from lower caste, that they were throwing stones at him. At one particular point, there was another attempt on his life. And what happened is that one of his disciples, Keshava Maharaj, switched clothes with him. And this is actually similar to a pastime with Sripad Ramanujacharya. He had one disciple named Quresh. And the king actually wanted to establish the superiority of Lord Shiva. And Quresh went and he challenged the king. There you go. That's all right. At least he likes me. So Quresh acted like Srila Ramanujacharya, and Quresh had his eyes put out because he actually argued with the king. Later on, Quresh actually went to Bharata, the Raja of the deity, and got his eyes back. So anyway, so there were attempts on his life. He was saved. In 1926, he sent sannyasis out to preach everywhere. He established actually 64 mouths all over India. Incidentally, he also established 108 Pada Tirthas, which means places where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited in different places in India. And those of you who have gone with us, because on South Indian tour have actually seen Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's footprints that have been commemorated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. Actually, in every place, holy place that Lord Chaitanya visited. And then he established a daily newspaper called the Sajjana Toshani in 1927. and dioramas in 1930 to present Krishna consciousness. 1930, he also established the what's called the Bug Bazaar Temple in Calcutta. And this was such a big temple, and he was very disappointed because the devotees, even the sannyasis, were fighting over who would have what room. So you don't get shocked when the ladies fight over their rooms here. Because the sannyasis were fighting. I want this room, I want that room. And that's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed Srila Prabhupada here in Radhakund that if you ever get any money, or you can sell the marble from the temples to print and distribute books, and if you ever get any money, print and distribute books. Because he was very disgusted with many of his disciples who were fighting over the rooms. And then he sent his disciples to the West, not to Europe, but to Germany and England in 1933. And when he sent his disciples to the West, he compared them to Hanuman jumping over the ocean. And he paid money. You know, you contrast this with Srila Prabhupada's preaching in the Western world, where no one paid money for Prabhupada to preach. So he was sending money from India for his disciples. And basically, maybe one or two people they made devotees. One person in England, Vinod Rani was her name. And she established a little temple there. And then the German godbrother of Srila Prabhupada was initiated at that particular point. And so Prabhupada was very friendly with him. And Prabhupada really, he had a very close relationship with this German godbrother. And then, okay, quickly we'll go through this. In 1935, our Srila Prabhupada wrote the Vyas Puja for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which he had this beautiful poem, and one of the lines in the poem was, "Absolute ascension thou hast proved, in personal calamity thou hast moved." And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "He has understood my mission." And he instructed his disciples, whatever he writes, you publish. So he was very, very pleased with Prabhupada. In fact, Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers tried to get him to join the temple. He was a householder at that time. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, leave him alone. In due course of time, he will do everything. So he understood Prabhupada's exalted position. 1936 was his last year of intense preaching. And in 1937, January 1st, in the Roman calendar, he left this world. He was known as Lion Guru, established 64 temples, presses, exhibits, writing. And as I mentioned before, his English was so elevated that even English-speaking people could not understand what he said. Even Prabhupada said that he sometimes couldn't understand what his Guru Maharaj was writing. If you read the Brahma Samhita with the commentary by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you have to go really slowly. At least I have to go slowly, because some of you are more expert than me in English. And so, this is the brief history of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Thinking about how we have like all those attempts on his life, right? It made me think about the Christian saying that God will give you more than you can handle.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, if like in that case, like is that because he really could handle all of that?
Oh, he could handle it, yeah.
And for us, like, Christian's not going to give us like something like that.
May, but we shouldn't take any chances. You know, he's an acharya, he has a specific position. Like, there's that example when Prabhupada sent devotees to Pakistan and they started preaching and they were risking their lives. This was the time when India and Pakistan were at war. And Prabhupada was in complete anxiety. He said, get out of there. You know, sent them a telegraph. So get out of there. And Prabhupada was like, so much anxiety when this is Brahmananda actually. When they came out, Prabhupada was just so pleased and embraced them. He said, I was so worried. And even there was a newspaper report that two American or foreign Vaishnavas have been killed. And Prabhupada read that, but it wasn't an accurate report. So we shouldn't take chances. We shouldn't take chances. And, people are going to throw stones at us. Just be careful.
So, I really love his personality. I see him as very radical in so many ways. And what I wanted to ask is, how was it taken by his contemporaries when he took sannyas, when he awarded himself sannyas? How was it actually accepted as legitimate?
That's interesting. I mean, generally the Babajis did not accept it as legitimate. So, obviously the order of Baba, in fact, the Babajis, of course, there's this whole group called the Anti-Party, which tries to prove that he never even took initiation from Srila Gaura-Kishordas Babaji Maharaj. And they say that he just invented that Gaura-Kishordas Babaji Maharaj never gave initiation. So this Anti-Party, and some people connected. I mean, Lee Prasad Thakur, who's one of his brothers, was actually like that too. And devotees started to visit Lee Prasad Thakur. And Prabhupada was upset, saying you should not visit him because he has a transcendental disagreement with his brother. So it was very, very dangerous for the devotees to visit. So yeah, even today there's this anti-party against Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, especially considering the fact that he refused to accept Vipini Bihari Goswami. And in fact, he wouldn't even offer obeisances to Vipini Bihari Goswami. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur was with his initiating guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur wouldn't even get close to him. And so Vipini Bihari Goswami asked Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, why isn't he coming up? And Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said he was taking the vow not to go within 100 meters of the Sahaja.
Yeah.
So I mean, no, he didn't reject his guru. He just didn't accept the teachings. But he didn't take a mantra again. No, he never took a mantra again. His guru was a bona fide guru. And I mean, these are transcendental personalities. What can I say? Prabhupada said you shouldn't go to these people because there's a transcendental disagreement. In other words, we shouldn't find fault. Also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find this whole discussion that Advaitacharya having like fights with Lord Nityananda. And one who takes sides and thinks it's something mundane will actually fall down from devotional service. So you have to be careful with these advanced Vaishnavas have some disagreement like that. So, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur really didn't appreciate Vipini Bihari Goswami, and Vipini Bihari Goswami was defeated during that whole discussion in Midnapur. So.
And the other question I had about the debate there, did he have a genuine call of nature, or did he just go to save face?
What's that? No, there was no call of nature at the debate. That was the call of nature was when he defeated the astrology professor.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's a different scenario. No, he didn't have a call of nature. No one had a call of nature. That was just, a sound defeat of the ritualistic Brahmins. It's an interesting story, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was a real revolutionary in many different ways. I mean, other things he did, like he rode in a Rolls Royce to Radhakund. And the injunction is that sannyasi should never ride in a car across an ocean or anything like that. And he even to preach Krishna consciousness, when he was inviting some Britishers to Sri Ram Mayapur, he actually arranged for there to be meat I mean, that's really radical. And when they were building the temple, he actually arranged that there would be some rolling of these cigarettes for the workers, the beaties or whatever they're called. Without these, beaties, without these, they wouldn't work. They'd lose their enthusiasm. I don't know why. But even here you see, even around Govardhan, sometimes you see, even the ladies sometimes are smoking. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's obnoxious. And of course, in the Western world, yeah, we have nicer cigarettes.
And vape nowadays.
And vaping, it's just. Anyway, so yeah, and then he did so many things in a radical fashion. I mean, big programs, pandals with doll exhibits, so people would be attracted to Krishna consciousness. Was using slideshows, which was very unique at that particular point, to present Krishna consciousness. Technology, whatever was the most advanced technology at the time, he would utilize. Even the radio at one point. He went on the radio and preached Krishna consciousness. So he was definitely into Yuga Vairagya, and the traditional Vaishnavas didn't appreciate that very much. They criticized him for that. So in many ways, he was criticized and not accepted, but he didn't care. He had Lord Chaitanya's mission to accomplish. So, any other questions? It's getting late. Yes. Good question.
How long did it take for him to complete 1 billion rounds?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think he actually completed it. What happened is he got chastised by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he went out and preached. He was actually, the way he was chanting those rounds was that he was in a hut that had a leaky roof. So instead of spending time to fix the roof, it's interesting, sometimes we get complaints about the rooms that people are staying in here. They don't have leaky roofs, but cold water. Or something. He just held an umbrella over his head while he was chanting his japa. He didn't want to take the time out. He just held an umbrella, Hare Krishna, and kept chanting. But then Lord Chaitanya told him, time to preach. And then he went out and preached Krishna consciousness. So, I read the biographies, none of them really said that he finished the billion rounds. But he would have done it. And he was so determined. And his determination was unbreakable, like lines in the stone, like the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Amazing personality, and so strict. In his temple, he was so strict. They had cars for preaching, but he wouldn't let the devotees use the cars for their own purpose. I mean, it's just amazing. And actually, the other day we went into his room. I didn't even mention that. He, if you notice in his room, in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bhakti Bhavan there's a toilet there in the room. He was the first one to put a toilet in Radhika. And you may say, why am I talking about that? The reason is that he was concerned with modern sanitation. Because people were, as they do now, were defecating all over the place. So he was a very practical, educated, modern person. And he was, when his disciples came back from preaching after he had paid all their bills, he was very disturbed with them because they had not actually achieved success. They actually said that, because the people won't give up eating meat. And then he said, so give them meat and get them to chant Hare Krishna. Because the disciples were preaching in such a way when they went to Europe. You have to follow regulated principles first. So that's an indication for us that we get people to chant first. We get to give people prasadam, but we don't stress so much on the regulated principles in the beginning. It's not that someone comes to us and we say, regulative principles. I mean, Prabhupada had people who were intoxicated dancing in his temple in 22nd Avenue. You know, frenetic dancing. I mean, if you look at the videos, it's just like, oh my God, these people are high, isn't it? So, anyway, so that's preaching. Preaching is in like a pin, as Prabhupada said, out like a plow. So you give people a little Krishna consciousness, like, you know, like we do with the university, isn't it? Like we gave Dai Radhika some Krishna consciousness. Before she knew it, she was a devotee. Oh my God, never expected this. She was, you know, should I tell the story about the old guru? The old guru? She, you know, first time she met him, she says, I don't want an old guru. Right? What? Yeah. Oh, that was Vishaka. It wasn't you. Oh, sorry. Sorry, it wasn't her. I got her confused. That's another disciple. So I don't want to know. Yeah, she didn't have any problems with me being old. So yeah, that was Vishaka. I laughed when I heard the story. No, she didn't say it to me, but later on, after she got initiated, she said that. That's right, Vishaka. Oh, you were good from the beginning. But you know, you don't expect people come, and you don't just like put everything on their heads immediately. You know, you give them prasadam. Prasadam works. Chanting the holy names work. Friendship with the devotees work, and eventually people will want to join us. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur criticized the disciples because they weren't successful after so many years. And Prabhupada went to the West with no money, you know, actually a few rupees, which he couldn't change, and he achieved great success. Okay, time to end. Oh my God. So thank you very much. All glories to His divine grace.